two, one.
Hey all.
Linda Lisa, hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you all.
So we'll get started in just about 30 seconds. I know they're still letting folks in. All right, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to NPU University's web-based 1006. And this class is called the Legislative Process. Today, of course, is June 24th. Thanks for the reminder to turn the volume off on that thing. All righty. So as always, I'm going to start off with a couple of housekeeping rules. Please keep your microphones muted at all times, unless you've been acknowledged, of course, to ask a question or give feedback. If you'd like to, if something really resonates with you and you just have to, you can't hold it in, you've got to give a reaction to it, you can use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen to clap or give a thumbs up or party hat or whatever it is you're feeling in the moment. If you have a question or would like to make a comment during the appropriate time of Q&A, you can raise your hand to get in the queue and we'll call on you in the order in which you raised your hand. As if you've been here before, you know that some instructors take questions while they're going, some take questions at the end of each section, or some at the end of the class and at the end of the class. So just whenever it's appropriate, you can just raise your hand and get in the queue to ask a question. And as is our NPU University policy, all questions must be relevant to course content. Please do not walk in the door with a list of questions that may or may not have anything to do with the presentation. All your questions have to be relevant to course content. If you haven't done this before, to raise your hand at the bottom of your screen on Zoom, you should see a button that says reactions. In this graphic, it's actually pointing to participants because that's where it used to be. Zoom did an update some time ago. We didn't update our screen, which we should, hint, hint. But in the meantime, you can find this button under reactions. And if you click on reactions, underneath that, you will see a blue hand that says raise hand, and that is where you will click to raise your hand. I think I'm supposed to do this at the end. I'm still kind of new to this, but I can tell you we've got some upcoming NPU University classes. Next week is workforce development. So yes, I am supposed to do that at the end, and I will. So welcome to all of you to NPU University. I do see some familiar faces, and it's really, really good to see your smiling faces. We do encourage everyone to turn their video cameras on. That helps the instructor to connect with the folks that we're talking to. And of course, it helps us to know that you're actually there and engaging in the class. And who wouldn't want to see your beautiful smiling face anyway? Oh my God, Miss Ola, see what I mean? Just brings joy. Yeah, we just want to see your beautiful faces. We are streaming this class live on Facebook. I wish I had thought of that before I went into my whole spiel, but yes, we are streaming live on Facebook. So hello to anyone that's watching us on Facebook. I always ask at the beginning of the class for everyone to please be patient with us. Although we've been doing this now for a little over a year, we are still at the mercy of technology, and technology sometimes has its own intentions. So if there is a bad connection or bad signal from the instructor, please just sit tight and we'll try to get that back up and running. And if not, a backup instructor will pick up. You don't want that to happen tonight, trust me, because Corinne is the only one in the room that can really nail this. So yes, please be cautious. I always introduce our team. And in doing so, I want to point out with great sadness that Samantha Terry, who is our NPU University Registrar and our NPU Program Manager, is out on an extended leave. She is the NPU University expert. So please be patient with the rest of our team and with me, because I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm just pretending. I try to make it look like I know what I'm doing, but this is definitely Samantha's lane. But I will introduce the rest of our team that's here, especially the two that hold us down and keep us together, keep us from falling apart. Tony has really stepped in and filled in for not only his own work, but Samantha's as well. Tony McNeil is our neighborhood engagement planner.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
And Daniel Vasquez is our NPU program coordinator. Daniel,
Hello.
say hi.
Hello.
He's always acting up. I always got to tell him to say hi. So yeah, you can feel free to use the chat feature if you want to discuss a topic that's being discussed that's being explained during the class. But hold your questions, because what happens is when the chat gets too long, it's hard to scroll up and find questions. So if you have questions, we'll take those at the appropriate time via Q&A. I think that's about it. I normally tell people a little bit about NPU University, but I am not certain that we have any first timers here. Is there anyone that's here for the first time? Your first time taking an NPU University class? Okay, I see one hand. So I will give my NPU University spiel. For the rest of you that have already been here, this is a good time to grab your pen and your paper so you can take your notes. If you need a bottle of water or something, grab that. All right, NPU University was founded in 2019 by this very team that sits before you. The short version is that one of the officers or members of the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board was discussing with me some of the issues that arise in the NPU system. We had a pretty spirited debate about some of those problems and how they could be fixed. And Mr. Ross, who is the former chair of NPUT, said, well, Leah, I'll tell you, the problem is just education. People need more information. They need more education. If you empower them with the education, that alone will resolve some of these problems. And so we thought that was a great idea and immediately began, not necessarily the solution to all of our NPU problems, but we definitely agree that education is empowering. And so since then, we started with a few classes. We have classes on zoning. We have classes to help NPU leaders become stronger. We have a really amazing Community Leadership Institute in partnership with the University of Georgia. It is a certificate program. When you complete that program, and I see a couple of our alumni in the room. I saw Linda Lisa, I saw Brandon Graham, I just saw him come in as well. If I missed anyone, forgive me, but it really is an excellent, oh, Mr. Martin, I'm sorry, Mr. Martin, how did I miss you? I know how, because you did the first cohort, that's how. But yeah, it is a really great program. We empower and train current and future / aspiring community leaders. We are currently in the process. We have open applications for our fall cohort, which begins, I'll tell you at the end of the class when it begins, but the application deadline is July 6th, that I know. So applications must be turned in by July 6th. It is a very competitive program. I repeat, it is a very competitive program. We have, last cohort, we had well over 100 applicants. We only have space for 25 people. We can only interview a few, more than 25 to kind of narrow down. Plus, we've got all these other requirements that we have people from every council district across the city, so that we've got a really diverse group of people. We look for all types of diversity, age, race, gender, background, community interest, etc., so that we can put together a really, really good cohort. But if you're interested in something like that, please do submit the application. You can find that on our website, and Tony or Daniel or one of the two will put the link in the chat because I don't remember what the link is and they have my back. So yeah, last year we started NPU University with our first class in January. And very soon after, we were asked to provide these classes virtually. And I love to tell people this story because it just goes to show that we plan and God laughs. But when we were asked if we could do this virtually, immediately I told the team and told the folks that asked, we are not going to think about that this year. We'll talk about that next year. First, I want us to perfect this program, tweak it a little bit, learn from it, and then improve it. And maybe next year we can talk about going virtual. That was in February of 2020. And as you all know, March of 2020, COVID-19 appeared and the whole world went virtual, including NPU University. So we've done a number of classes since then, since last year. I don't remember the count at this point. Samantha would have known that number. But we've done a ton of classes. Last year, we instructed over 6,000 students in our inaugural year. We're very, very proud of that. And I think that's about it. So we've done a number of classes. One of our most well-received, most well-attended, and the best feedback that we got ever on any of our classes was the one that you're in tonight, the legislative process. By far the most popular class that we did last year. We had a ton of people that participated in that class, and it is just such good information. I really wish I could get everyone in the city in this class. Myself included, it's going to be my second time sitting through it, but I love the information in this class. I'm so glad that you are all here to get this info. And without any further ado, it's my pleasure and my privilege to introduce you to my colleague, Corinne Lindo, who is a legislative analyst in the Office of Policy and Research in the Atlanta City Council. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Corinne, and Corinne, you can go ahead and pull your screen up.
Well, let me say good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me here for this presentation. Can you all see it? I'll give you a little background. My name again is Corinne Lindo. I'm the Legislative Research and Policy Analyst for the Atlanta City Council. I've been in the office since 2017. I have about I want to give my age away, over 25 years in government. I worked in New York City government for several years, and I was part of a group of individuals that helped to start up the city of Johns Creek. Worked there for 10 years, and I've been at the City of Atlanta in the Office of Policy and Research since 2017. So I'll go through this, and I'll stop midway to see if you all have any questions while I'm going through it. So thank you all for joining us this evening. And as Ms. Ruru says, Leah, give me a little moment too. I'm a little rusty with this technology. Okay, we'll begin. So we have the Atlanta City Council made up of 15 members, including 12 council members who are elected and 3 who serve at large. Currently our at-large members are Council Member Michael Julian Bond, and he is the at-large for District 1. And then we have Council Member Westmoreland. He represents at-large number 2, and Council Member Andre Dickens, he is at-large District number 3. The council, we also have the council president, and she presides over all the city council meetings, and she doesn't vote, but she will be called upon, similar to the vice president. Only if she needs to break a tie will the council president need to vote. And we've only had, since I've been there since 2017, I think one case where the council president was called upon to break a tie. So the Atlanta City Council is also made up of 7 committees. We have the City Utilities Committees, we have the Community Development and Human Services, the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee, our Zoning Committee, our Transportation Committee, a Finance Executive Committee, and the Committee on Council. And I'll go through what the jurisdiction of these particular committees are. So the City Utilities Committee basically deals with solid waste, sanitation, recycling issues, sewage, solid waste, bulk waste, construction, matters pertaining to cable television, and the Mayor's Office of Communication, Department of Watershed Management, Public Works issues, the Metropolitan River Protection Act. And so all of the subject matters that are pertaining to these particular items will go before our City Utilities Committee for consideration before they make any recommendation to any contracts for use regarding, for example, People TV, waste collection. All of these matters will be deliberated before our City Utilities Committee, and they make recommendations to the full council. Then we have our Community Development and Human Services Committee. Our Community Development and Human Services Committee oversees the comprehensive plan, deals with the Office of Housing and Design, our Planning Department, Office of Building, Department of Grants Management, and oversees Office of Special Events, deals with the Community Development Block Grant, and the Atlanta Workforce Development Agency, among many, as you can see from the list. It's quite extensive. They also deal with the aging, convention and tourism, and Department of Consumer Affairs. And they deal with all budgeted issues related to grants management. And so Planning Department will come to them regarding the comprehensive development plan. I believe they're working on the 5-year revision of this update of this plan, and all of that will go through our Community Development and Human Services Committee. And then we have our Public Safety Administration Committee. We deal with basically the police matters, the Corrections Department, Fire and Rescue, and the Law Department. So all issues related to police funding or the contracts related to police, fire, and also our Code of Enforcement units will come through the Public Safety Committee. And the Office of the Solicitors, the Public Defender's Office, the Office of Municipal Clerk, the Office of Municipal Court, I'm sorry. And so with all these committees that I've talked about and continue to talk about, all these departments that are under the jurisdiction of these departments, they will all be required to do quarterly reports to the committees, like Watershed will go to Utilities, Planning Department will go to Community Development and Human Services Committee, so the Police and Corrections and Fire and Law Department are some of the committees will be required to do quarterly updates to the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. Then we have our Zoning Committee. Now, Zoning Committee basically deals with one matter, rezoning special use permits, that's all. And so this is a little bit different than how some of the other committees function, in that the Zoning Committee, we basically hear the recommendation of the Zoning Review Board. They don't really deliberate on these matters. They basically get the feedback from the Zoning Review Board on the public hearings that are held and what those decisions are. And they basically decide whether or not to accept the recommendations of the Zoning Review Board or not. And they may make some changes and then send those recommendations directly to the full council. Then we have our Transportation Committee. And our Transportation Committee deals with, again, all matters of transportation generally, including aviation, Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, all contracts and that have to deal with them, including the commissary, contracts that come up. Those will all go through the vendor applications, the vendor forms that serve in the airport. These will all go through the Transportation Committee for review, and all issues dealing with MARTA, as well as the Atlanta Regional Commission that has to do with, traffic and flow throughout the citywide. Those infrastructure improvements, those will all go through our Transportation Committee. And we recently, prior to us having a Department of Transportation, the Public Works would answer to this committee based on issues that were related to sidewalk repair and issues of that. But these have all been transferred now to our Department of Transportation, and all those matters that have to do with contracts, road improvements, stop signs, all engineering work, bonds for street improvements, those will all be considered by our Transportation Committee and recommendations submitted to the full council. Then we have our Financing Executive Committee. This is one of our most important committee, and you'll notice as I go through the committee makeup that the Finance Executive Committee deals with, of course, the annual budget, all the city taxes. It deals with all the city facilities, Office of Cultural Affairs and Office of Constituent Services. It has, I think, the most responsibilities of any committee. And the members of the Finance Committee are the chairs of all of the other standing committees. And they also have jurisdiction over, the mayor's issues that pertain to intergovernmental agreements between the mayor and outside entities. Then we have the Committee on Council. The Committee on Council is responsible for writing the rules and regulations that have to do with the officers and the employees of the City of Atlanta. They will write legislation regarding the operation of the rules of the council, how the council shall function, and responsible for major city changes that have to do with employees, benefits, and how they function. And so any appointments to, let me go back a little bit, all appointments to the city boards, we have a lot of boards and commission that serve the city. All of these appointments must go through the Committee on Council. Next, we have the committee assignments. So we have the city's Utilities Committee, and that is chaired by Councilmember Natlim Archibong, and you can see the members here. We also have our policy analysts, just as such as myself. We serve as support for these committees. For this particular committee, we have Mr. Jared Evans, and we have a legislative assistant who helps us prepare the agendas for those meetings, and that is Ms. Jasmine Tell. Our Community Development Human Services Committee is chaired by Mr. Matt Westmoreland. Again, he's the council member at large for District 2. And we have council members, each committee has 7 council members as well. So we have as a policy analyst here, Ms. Julia Puldini, and we have a legislative assistant, Ms. Wasona Griffin. Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee is chaired by Council Member Joyce Shepherd, and I serve as the policy analyst for that committee, and also Ms. Tell serves as our support and helps us prepare all the agenda and materials for that committee. Next, we have the Zoning Committee, and that's chaired by Mr. Amir Faroki, and I also staff that with the support of Ms. Wasona Griffin. Our Transportation Committee is chaired by Mr. Andre Dickens, and again, Julia Puldini supports that with the help of Jasmine Tell. We each have about 2 committees each. Absent the Finance Executive Committee, which I talked about before, that has a large responsibility. This is the analyst for this. It happens to be the Deputy Council Director of our office, and this is a huge task. So this is chaired by Ms. Jennifer and I. And Santana, this is really the only committee, Ms. Santana K. Wright, this is the only committee that she'll handle, because it encompasses a lot of the city functions, and most of the city contracts having to do with technology and budgeting are handled by this committee. And that's she is supported by Ms. Wasona Griffin. Our Committee on Council is chaired by Mr. J.P. Mazakite, and Jared also supports this committee with Jasmine Tell. So how does it all work? So basically, we have legislation that is introduced either on the floor of each council meeting we have 2 council meetings per month, the first and second Monday of the month. So we have legislation that can be introduce on the floor. And then we have, or you can do, or they're submitted through a personal, we have legislation that is either submitted on the floor, we call this a personal paper by the council member, or we have legislation that goes directly to the committee. And that is usually paper that it was submitted by the administration internally. And so we have 4 types of legislation that comes through the city council. We have ordinances, and every ordinance, every official act of the city, especially ordinance, those are law, and those require 2 readings. So even if you introduce an ordinance as a first read during the council meeting, it still will require to go to the committee for a second read. It must be sounded, ordinances must be sounded twice before the full council before they can be adopted. Absent charter recommendations, those require 3 readings. Those must be sounded at full council 3 times before they can be adopted by the council members. Resolutions, on the other hand, only require 1 reading. And so a council member can read a resolution during a council meeting as a personal paper and can adopt it on spot without any debate if needed. Or they can send it to the committee for further discussion. And the communications are basically the appointments of officers for certain boards that will go through the committee of purview, depending on what board it is or commission. And all of those communications, most of them I should say, have to be again approved by the committee and council. Again, but it's based on the city ordinance, whether or not it requires council confirmation. There are some committee appointments that it will clearly say the council confirmation is not required. Then we have claims, and claims go straight to the law department. Those are handled by public safety. Those are if you trip on a city sidewalk or a city employee runs into your vehicle, you have the right to file a claim. Those claims are sent to the council president and the mayor's office, and those are vetted by our law department, and they will either dismiss the claim or they will contact the claimant and try to make a settlement offer, and those settlement offers will come before our public safety committee. If they think the claim is justified, they may just submit the claim directly to our public safety committee as a recommendation to approve. Here we have our legislative calendar. And this will tell, well, I guess the columns on the far right talks, the one to the second to left talks about the committee meeting dates. Oh, I'm sorry. Again, bear with me. I told you beforehand, this is a little tricky. So this is our legislative calendar. If you look at this will tell us when legislation are due to be reviewed, and the final column tells you when it gets to council, which council it will get to for a decision. The first one tells you when the department should have it, when they should send it to the law department for review, when it will come to, each department has a legislative liaison that reviews it to make sure that all the pertinent material are involved, and then they send it to the mayor's office for sign off or their particular commissioners. So once it gets to them, then we receive the document and it tells them the deadline that we need to have it by. Once we get it, we prepare an agenda, and then the next date it goes to our committee meetings. And then once the committee makes recommendations on these legislation, we send them to the full council. So we'll take a look at the council website. If you're interested in following the meetings, you can visit our city council website. It will tell you the date of the committee meetings. All of the presentations for committees will be on the website. And it's not listed here, but if you click on How Do I, there's a tab on the council website. If you click that, there should be a tab there where you can register to receive alerts about meetings, public notices, and calendars and meeting agendas. So if you visit that, if you don't automatically get them currently, and I think a lot of the MPU members do, please visit that and sign up to receive them automatically so you won't miss any meetings. You will also get press releases that are sent out by our communication department. This is a sample of one of our agendas, and so you can see these are the legislative items that have gone through the process, like I explained, and they're finally wound up on the agenda. This is a sample of our Community Development and Human Services Committee agenda, and basically the agenda includes just a caption of the legislation. And when we send these out to members of the public or the council, you can click on it on our website and we'll take you to the full, you can see the attachments behind it. These can be up to 800 pages, 900 pages of backup. So if you go to a website and you click on the agenda, they have two forms. You can either do a PDF and it will just show you the agenda, or you can say the full agenda packet and it will have all the backup. So these are each topics that council members will vote on. So you have the communications again that I talked about, which are the appointments of members. You'll have presentations from particular committees, and in this committee that's making the presentation this month, I believe, is the Metro, the Bank Authority, the Metro Atlanta Bank. Oh, I'm not familiar with that, but I believe this is the Land Bank Authority. The Land Bank Authority. So they will make a presentation to the committee. And so if you look at this, these captions, the committee will discuss the legislation and they'll make several decisions. They'll either say they're favorable, meaning they approve the legislation. They can amend the legislation and it will be favorable as amended. They can either substitute it after they read the backup and sort of make recommendations to change the language. They may determine that one of these legislations are no longer necessary and they could recommend that it's filed. That means it's obsolete, it's no longer necessary. Or they can, sometimes what the committee members will do, if they're reading legislation and they don't have enough information to render a decision at that time, they may recommend that it move forward to the city council on condition that the additional information is provided at the time of the council meeting. And if they don't have the information that they don't want to discuss it on time, that they will recommend that this legislation could be held. And so what happens is once our city council committees, what they basically do is make a recommendation to the full council to approve the particular legislation. All legislation that comes through committees as favorable as amended, with unanimous vote by the committee members, those go on a consent agenda, and that means there's no discussion at the full council. The full council will simply approve those blanket. But if any legislation comes out of committee without a full consensus, meaning 6-1, 5-1, they abstain, it will have to be reported out in the full council, and it will warrant additional discussion as to why the full committee did not feel justified in approving that particular legislation. Are there any questions so far? I know I'm going through this pretty quickly.
If you all have questions, please raise your hand. You can raise your hand by clicking on the button at the bottom of your screen that says reactions, and then raise hand.
Okay, we'll continue.
1 second, Corinne, we have
Sure.
one hand raised. Mr. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised to see that street abandonments and street renamings were still living in public works instead of having moved over to transportation. Is that an oversight or was that intentional?
That may be an oversight. I was filling in for someone, so yes, you're correctly right. Those will now be under transportation. Our report may have not been updated. Thank you for catching that. We'll make sure.
So it was an oversight in the presentation, not an oversight in the committee jurisdiction. Is that right?
No, the presentation is an oversight. You're correct that would
okay.
now be under the Department of Transportation.
Thanks, Corinne. I don't see any other hands raised. so you can continue.
And this is just a fun graphic about legislation that's introduced. I briefly talked about how it can be amended. So you'll have it introduced one way, then they'll make amendments, substitute, and by the time it's passed, it's different. And then again, by the time it's implemented, it changes again. And really what was needed was really nothing. And that's just the process of the legislation, is that everyone wants to amend it, insert pieces in it, when oftentimes you just need 3 lines of what is needed to get action done. And the elements, they say, of a good legislation contain really the purpose, what it does and does not do, the effects on existing policy or the budget. You make sure there's enough, the correct code section of the city ordinance is included, any amounts or numbers that are budgeted are correct, and that any language that is pertinent to a contract or MOU is listed in the legislation. And here's just a quick overview of how, again, that I briefly flew through, is the legislative flow. So we can have legislation that comes from the city departments, so they can come from the law department, finance, planning, human resources, public works, our watershed, aviation, fire, procurement, our AIM department, then our Department of Transportation, which is new. And they will send this legislation to the mayor's office for review. And that is like it noted in the legislative calendar that are provided to you. So they have a particular time frame as when they need to get that to the mayor's office for review. And after the mayor's office reviews that, they release it and they send it to our office, and we prepare our legislative agendas for the committee purview. And then the legislation also, if it's introduced by a council member and introduced what we call a personal paper, those papers are introduced at full council. And either if they're a resolution, they can be adopted right then at the full council meeting if the council member so chooses, or they can be referred to a committee meeting for further discussion. And again, as I talked about, the exception is zoning papers come directly from the ZRB. Well, I'm sorry, they come from the planning department, who prepares them, and they staff the ZRB. And those, once the ZRB renders a decision, those come directly to the zoning committee. So that's the only way that zoning committee papers can come to the zoning committee. We do have, but they can also come from the council members via personal paper, but they must, again, all zoning papers must go through the zoning review board for consideration for a public hearing. And then we have claims, and again, the claims are, case damages, citizens filing claims of damages, property damage, or personal bodily damage based on an accident that's dealt with a city vehicle or a city structure. And then once the legislation is approved by the city council, they're all uploading in a database under our final action legislation. And I believe that the city clerk, this is done by the city clerk's office. Once the council approves the legislation, it's dormant for 8 days. On the 9th day, it's either signed by the mayor or it automatically becomes law. So the mayor has 8 days to veto legislation. On the 9th day, it becomes law. And then the city clerk's office, about 2 weeks after that, will upload it in the final action legislation database. I believe they have legislation updated in this database going back as 1996, I believe. Anything further than that, you would have to go to the Atlanta History Center, and I've had to search legislation from 1937 for an open records request. It's very fascinating to see, legislation and how it's sort of matured in the way that we draft legislation now from back then. So if you're ever looking for something, you can basically do either keywords if you don't have the legislation number, but you pretty much can find everything from 1996 again, or you can contact of the the Atlanta History Center, and they're extremely helpful, very helpful in getting legislation. And that's basically it. You know, you can check out our social media sites. We update about, we provide updates about, you know, important actions that are taken by the council, significant legislation that's coming before the council that's been voting on for the council, our events that council members are participating in throughout the city. So by visiting our social media sites, you really get a good handle on what's going on around the city. Our communication teams definitely works on keeping these updated. And that's all, folks. Let me know if you have any questions.
I'm sorry, I was talking and I was on mute. So I do see one hand, and I want to encourage everyone to please do not be shy. This is the time to ask those questions. This is the best time to ask these questions. So please feel free to bring your brightest, best questions to the forefront. Linda Lisa.
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious. I guess I'm surprised the mayor does not have to say yay or nay, and it just automatically becomes law. Is that like how most cities do it, or is it, I'm just curious why they wouldn't have to say
You're absolutely, well, you're absolutely correct. She has 8 days. So either she has 8 days to say yay, to say nay. If it's yay, it's automatically approved. So she has 8 days to veto it. So the city council is the policy makers of the city of Atlanta. That's correct. So, but if the mayor objects to a particular piece of legislation, she can veto that. Of course, the council can override that veto by 2/3. But yes, if she does not if she doesn't object to a legislation within 8 days, it automatically becomes law.
I got you. Thank you.
All righty. The next question is coming from Mr. Martin. Jim Martin.
Yeah, I have 3 questions, but I'll just ask the first one and raise my hand again because I see there are other hands up. For things that are dual referred to more than one committee, are they actually reviewed by the committee and the policy analyst for each committee, or are they in general reviewed by one and rubber stamped by the other?
Well, the analysts, what do you mean when we make what we review them, and both, I don't know what you mean. We don't rubber stamp them. We will basically.
Well, there are a lot of matters that will be dual referred to some committee and finance, for example, because finance seems to get everything that involves spending a nickel. And so in terms of what sort of review those pieces of legislation get, do they get 2 independent reviews or do they get 1 review?
Oh, you're absolutely, they get 2 reviews, most definitely. Each committee will discuss that piece of legislation independently.
Independently.
That's correct. And so they both will have to vote on it to send it to, so for example, if we have a dual piece of legislation, we happen to have one from public safety held it. And so it was also dual referred to the finance committee. They could not discuss it until it went through public safety. So when public safety had their discussion, made a decision, it went to finance and they had their own discussion, and they actually brought in some additional information that was not requested by the previous committee. So just something that they wanted individually.
Is there then a hierarchy where one of those 2 committees must hear it before the other?
No, it's basically whichever committee meets first.
Okay, so but
Yes.
you had said that finance held it waiting for public safety.
No, public safety held it. We met first. Public safety held it.
Right, okay, so, but public safety didn't need to hold it. Is that?
Well,
correct?
they did because they were discussing it. And when you talked about rubber stamp it, they did not rubber stamp it. They had questions that were not answered. So they didn't just rubber stamp it and sent it to
Okay.
FEC.
They held it pending more information, not because
That's
they
correct.
had.
Yes, that's correct. So they didn't rubber stamp it. And also when FEC got it, they didn't rubber stamp it either. They had some additional questions that they needed answered before they would approve it. So because there are different members in each committee, and so they have different questions, that they may want to see answered. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin, for that question. Mr. Jones?
My question was, when the actual council, the instance, the Finance and Executive Council actually put something on pause or hold, how many days do they have to actually rearrange that? Or can I actually make a recommendation? For instance, there was a situation at the last executive finance meeting about the police regional training center that I actually want. And so I basically want to make a proposal that we basically look into the Atlanta Land Bank in Northwest Atlanta to actually reduce the violent crime in the city of Atlanta, to put it in that particular region. But I wasn't sure when that particular meeting comes back online. I know there's 2 per month, and I wasn't sure how much time I had to actually coordinate with all the members of the Finance and Executive Committee as an executive branch, official, myself, to actually, make sure we have, great public policy in the city of Atlanta.
Thank you, Mr. Jones, for that question.
Well, so yes, the FEC, the Finance Executive Committee, put that on hold. And what our ordinance says is that after 2 meetings, the sponsor, anyone after 2 meetings, any council member can pull that item from the held agenda, only after it's been held twice. Otherwise, the sponsoring person can pull it at any time, but then it would have to go into a committee of the whole and go through the whole discussion again. So to answer your question about how reaching out to the committee, it's being held now, so you could reach out to them before the next meeting and try to, impose on them your view. You can call in through the public comment line, or all of the council members, they all have their email addresses on our website. So you can always shoot them an email. It's either read by most of them are read by the council members directly or their staff. But it's hard to say sometimes when a particular item will be held, because we don't know if a particular council member will pull it and have it go through committee of the whole if it's urgent, or wait for the 2 cycles that it's being held, and then anyone can pull it up after it's been held for twice in 2 consecutive the whole legislative cycle, two full council meetings. So this one, I think, was held last council meeting. So it would have to go past the next council meeting. That would be the 2nd cycle. And then the meeting of, again, it would be until August that it really could be pulled up for a vote without having to go through committee of the whole.
All right, I thank you for that question, Mr. Jones. The next question is coming from Carrie Easterwood.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, we just can't see you, Carrie.
You can't?
We can't see you, but go ahead, we hear you.
Start video.
There you go. There's that beautiful smile.
Okay, I am brand new to this. So I've just got some questions. I wanted to learn more about how all this works. Are there any volunteer opportunities where you can come and learn a little more about this by kind of doing or helping or assisting?
Well, when we're not at City Hall now, we didn't really have anyone volunteering in our office per se. It's not to say that could not be the case. We have had students, we have student interns, but we have not had any volunteers. I've been there for 4 years. I know that, of course, the Mayor's Office of Constituent Services, there's a lot of departments in the city that have volunteers, but in our legislative branch, I don't know. We haven't had any since I've been there in the 4 years that I've been there.
Okay.
I want to piggyback on Corinne's question. On Corinne's answer, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
My strongest recommendation to anyone who ever wants to understand more about how the system works, and I give this advice to everyone from students, high school students on up to adults, attend city council meetings, attend council committee meetings, and attend MPU meetings and or MPU committee meetings as well. The MPU system, I want to say is, but I'm going to say was patterned by the city council. And so it mirrors the council in many ways.
Okay.
Usually it should mirror the council in some ways and not in other ways, but you'll definitely get a very good understanding of how the process works by attending those council committee meetings and
Okay.
the city council meetings, and also plug for the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board as well.
Okay. Council committee.
Mhm.
Okay. And the advisory board. Okay. Thank you.
And definitely, Leah, that's a great point. And also, please, you can watch our committee meetings online. I think the more you watch them, the more you get a sense of
Okay.
the process and how the discussions and how things are voted on. So I think that's a good way to just watch the meetings, and you get sort of a sense of how the process works.
Okay.
And I agree with that. I would be, well, that's what I meant when I said attend. I did mean virtually because we're not meeting in
Yeah.
person. But I would be remiss if I didn't also suggest, and this is for anyone in the room, honestly, who wants to understand the process better. I have people who have been attending MPU meetings since I was a baby and still don't really get the process.
Okay.
So my strongest advice is to attend the zoning review boards meetings, at least one of them, so you understand how it works. The Board of Zoning Adjustments meeting, at least one, so you understand how it works. The License Review Board meeting, another very important one. These are all a part of the process, not necessarily a part of the legislative process, although some are, but it really does help you understand better how the system works and how the city works.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I
the
want to
next-
just clarify. I pulled up the one issue about the health legislation because I always get that backwards. I wanted to just clarify for that gentleman. So that paper that was held, so the papers that are held in our full council, after 2 meetings, it can be pulled up by the sponsor and pulled up to a vote to the floor. So that particular paper was held by Councilmember Shepherd. That was a personal paper by Councilmember Shepherd that you referenced. So after 2 consecutive cycles, meaning it was held at the last meeting, after the July 6th meeting, by August 7th, Councilmember Shepherd was able to pull that legislation up for a vote after those 2 meetings. But at any time, any council member can request that the paper is removed from held, and then it would go to a committee of the whole, meaning, all the members of the council would deliberate that paper. So Councilmember Shepherd can pull it up after it's been held for 2 cycles as a sponsor, but even before that, or after that, any council member can request that item be removed from held, and then a majority of council members would have to vote for it to go to a committee of the whole, for the gentleman who asked that question.
Thank you so much, Corinne. You're always so thorough. The next question is coming from Andrew Anderson. Mr. Anderson?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
We can. We were
Okay.
hearing you at one point.
My question was, what happens to legislation that is vetoed? Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, what happens to legislation that is vetoed? Is that your question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Corinne?
Yeah, that legislation has gone back to the full council and requires 2/3 the council's vote to approve it. So I
Okay.
believe it's 10 or more votes that's required in order for that legislation to be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. My list disappeared. Okay, the next question is coming from, forgive me if I get this wrong, girl, Nicole Weisswasser.
Yeah, that's right.
Good, phonics.
So I hate to ask a question if it's kind of repeating the same answer, but we were talking about when the mayor approves or codifies an agenda So for example, like rezoning, it goes through and it has to go to the mayor to be signed off within 8 days. So if she does not sign, it is automatically approved, or she can sign to approve or sign to deny. Is that correct?
Well, the zoning is a little different in that I don't know if the mayor has veto power for the zoning. I'll have to, because that is state law. I'll have to look at that. And so the state law for zoning sort of gives the power of rezoning to the zoning review board, and then the city, they make a recommendation to the city approves it. I'll have to really look at that. I don't know if the mayor can veto a zoning. I think state law prohibits that. That's the state legend. The zoning law is established by the state. And those laws are for all the cities in Georgia, not just the city of Atlanta. So for example, our rules of council are particular to the city of Atlanta, meaning the mayor vetoes for 2/3 of the vote. But their state law says that you file a voting, you file a case to rezone, the city has to hear it in a certain number of days, it has to be advertised for 15 days. All of those are in the state law. So that's a very good question. I don't think I've ever, and I've worked for the city of in Johns Creek, and also I don't think the state law, every state zoning law is very, because they want to take the politics out of the zoning, so to speak.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that the mayor cannot veto a zoning. She can appeal to the city council members to deny it, but I've never seen a case where the mayor vetoes a zoning.
Okay, so her codifying it is just a formality then, or?
She does not codify zoning. Zoning, the city council approves the zoning and it's codified by the municipal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the municipal association. We send it to them to codify, and they put it in a zoning book. So that's how it's codified. Yeah, but she doesn't. I don't think she doesn't sign zoning cases at all. I'm pretty sure of that. But that's a very good question. I've never asked that. But the zoning procedures are state defined.
Okay,
But I'll see if I can follow up with you on that for sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the question, Nicole, and thank you, Corinne. Mr. Martin, you are back up. Jim?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
thank you. So I'm curious now about first readings and second readings.
Mhm.
Sometimes things are introduced that essentially have no content. It's an ordinance to do something, and then the something is left blank.
Mhm.
And it seems like a gaming of the system to me, that this gets a first reading and a second reading and then gets its content. Is that problematic, or is that just the way things are done?
I don't think that would happen because we can't. It may not have the specifics that I talked about, the dollar amount, where it's coming from, or this particular section of the zoning, but the ordinance has to say what the intent is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's got a title, so you know sort of what area it falls in, but it doesn't have any actual meat to it. So you have no idea what it's intended to do.
Yeah,
an
but it
ordinance
wouldn't
to
get-
reform something, for example, needs nothing more than that description to get a first and second reading, as far as I can tell.
It wouldn't get a second reading. I doubt. That's why we hold it. I would be suspect if we had a legislation like that. And that's if it's on a time schedule. Let's say, for example, we have to approve the budget by the end of June. So they may have a shell budget saying to adopt the budget and it's empty, but that will be held until that meat is included. It definitely will not have a second reading without the substance of the ordinance.
So what's the purpose of the shell thing, the thing with no contents?
Because it requires 2 readings and we may have a deadline that has to be approved by, let's say we have a contract that's going to expire. And so it needs to be approved so we can get it on the legislative calendar that I showed to try to meet that timeline.
So I guess then the follow-up question would be, what's the purpose of the reading if the reading is an empty thing?
Well, the caption has to sort of let the public know, because we only read the caption, the ordinance, you only read the caption. So the caption has to sort of give a summary of what the intent is. So you can't have a first reading that says an ordinance to blank, blank, blank. You know, it doesn't, yeah. It has to have a substance about what the intent is of the ordinance. And then you can put the meat, but you have to have the ordinance to adopt the fiscal year 2022 budget of the city of Atlanta. That tells the public a reading of what the intent is, but the meat of the budget will not be approved until, you know, the second reading.
But one would not reasonably object or feel compelled even to comment on the idea that we would be adopting a budget if you didn't know what was in the budget, for example. And the purpose of the reading is at a point where there is public comment.
Right, you're absolutely right. And that, but if it's published on the council agenda, that's where we allow public comment. At that point, you have it. So yes, you can have a second reading with a blank document. So as I said, that will be an anomaly now, and I would love to see that, because yeah, the second reading has to have the substance in it, and oftentimes we'll hold it at the committee level until the substance is in there. So by the time it's published on the full council agenda, that you could have that information.
All right.
So yes, if you find a case like that, I'd like to, you know, please let us know. And that's why we, like Leah says, we urge people to, you know, follow the meetings, read our agenda. And we often get citizens that call us and say, you know, this says a page 3 and it only has 2 pages. And we welcome that before, you know, it's adopted, because then we have to sort of, you know, redo it. So yes, if you see any legislation that is missing substance, by all means, but we try to make sure, and as part of the analysts, that's part of our job. We read pretty much every piece of legislation that comes through the council to make sure that it's covering all the pertinent facts. So we read every piece of legislation that gets adopted by the city council, and it's divided amongst the committee to make sure that, you know, those pieces are there. And we'll pull out, we'll send questions. Leah may know, because I've had questions to the particular departments if there are pieces missing in legislation that we think are pertinent to the approval.
Yeah, I guess just sort of a comment on that sometimes it appears that pieces of contentless legislation, a title and no content, show up where there's no obvious time critical element, in which case it seems like the only purpose for having them there is to circumvent at least one cycle of public comment.
I disagree. I mean, and I respectfully, I think really we're typically just on a timetable. And council will definitely, if there's no timetable and there is they'll hold it for as many cycles as necessary until the information is there. But so that's not the intent. The intent is if there is a deadline of a contract and it's substantial enough that it will be detrimental if it's not approved in a timely manner.
Okay, so hold on. This is really great conversation, and I love it because it's applicable and everyone can learn from the discussion. But we're early, so we're ahead of time, and I think we're going to have time to come back to that conversation. But I want to move into the other folks who have their hands raised and then come back to that. Is that okay? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Ms. Walker. Good to see
yes.
you. It's good to see you, Ms. Walker.
Yeah, it's good to see you as well. I put my questions in the chat. So, but my question is, how long can an ordinance or a resolution be held in a committee? And I was wondering if the presenter can explain again filed legislation. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So I think it was in 2019, we changed the law. Usually legislation was able to be held quadrennially every 4 years. So you could introduce a legislation in 2020, it would have been held for 4 years until there was an election. Because as you know, the city council, we have an election every 4 years. So they would be held for every 4 years until it dropped off. And we just found that there were just so many legislation held. So in 2019, we changed the rule that a legislation can only be held for 1 year from the date that it was held by the committee. And then it automatically drops off of the paper. So it's automatic. So, okay, does that clarify it for you? And then to file, so when you file a paper, let's say we have 2 duplicate papers filed that introduced, and they both say the same thing. We will file one because it's obsolete, it's not needed. We already have a legislation doing it. Or let's say council member introduced legislation to donate a car to someone, let's just be facetious, and then the person doesn't need the car anymore, so they'll follow that legislation, it becomes obsolete. Or if a council member was going to file legislation to rename a street and they said, I absolutely don't want the name renamed after me, I don't want that acknowledgement, they will say, okay, we'll file that paper, it's no longer needed. So the paper is dead and it's like it never was introduced.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Corinne. The next question is coming from Rolanda Powell. Miss Rolanda. Where's Rolanda? I see your hand. I don't see your face.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. There you are. Go ahead, Rolanda.
I just want to say this class has been so awesome. I've learned a lot, especially in my role as an advocacy campaigns manager at Atlanta Bicycle Coalition. One of my roles is to see that policy and legislation and all that kind of stuff. So it's been very helpful to me for my work. So thank you for this. I had a question about the 4 types of legislation. And you talked about the different types of readings. I missed, was there a number of readings for communications and claims?
No, communications require just 1 reading. But they do, and again, if we have communications, that's an appointment to a commissioner or board, and the legislation that establishes the commissioner of the board will specify whether or not council confirmation is required. So if council confirmation is not required, they'll just read it at the city council meeting, and then again, they'll just file it like it's done and it's done. But if it requires council confirmation, I have to go to the committee of purview, and they will just question the appointee, and then that will go. Another form of communication is like an audit report. That's just communicating something, sharing something with council. An audit report is called a communication. That just be accepted and filed. So it only requires that 1 reading.
Thank you so much. And thank you for that question, Rolanda. Was that your last question, Rolanda?
Yeah, this is very helpful. I'm looking forward to going back and revisiting the video.
Awesome. Oh, Miss Gloria, where are you? I see your name, I don't see you. Miss Gloria, you're up next.
Hey, Miss Leah, how are you? I just wanted to refer back to Nicole. Hey, Nicole, she's my adjoining Chosewood neighborhood. I see if I understood what she was asking, and I think maybe, if I'm not mistaken, Nicole, I don't want to put words in your mouth, she was referring to the mayor's approval of the application, kind of like with the LRB. That's what I was interpreting her to say, that with the LRB, again, the application moves forward after the board has responded, and then the application then goes to the mayor. I think what question arose in my mind is there a similar process with the ZRB, whereby it goes, the board approves or disapproves, and then it goes to, if the board approves, it then goes to the mayor for a sign off. That's what I think maybe Nicole was thinking, in not legislation otherwise, but the application and the applicant. So the question is that the same process, in my opinion, for the ZRB as it is for the LRB, although we're talking about applications versus legislation?
Thank you for that. And no, you're right that the mayor does sign all the license review board application. That's not the process here. The process is that the applications go to the planning department and they review the application. And so, but here's and so, yeah, that's a little different, but I will definitely research it. But the difference with zoning is that, and I still couldn't find anything that the mayor vetoed zoning, because zoning is sort of on the law, so to speak. There is a zoning map, there's zoning books that allow some certain sort of development, and the rules. So the rezoning is, how do you interpret the rules? Because it says you can build a 4-story if you have certain land and use, so it's a little different. So a developer will apply that, his zoning application will manipulate that rule to say that this allows me to do that because X, Y, Z. You see, so it's up to the city to say that your interpretation of it is incorrect. So it's a little different than just a legislation authorizing the contract. This is based on, you know, zoning law that the city's adopted, and telling the developer this is what is allowed, and him applying, manipulating it, submitting an application, giving an interpretation of the zoning law that would support the development. Is that? And so the MPU will weigh in and making certain modifications to say, no, it doesn't meet the standards of the city zoning, or it's just a little different and it's okay. So that's part of the discussion with the MPU, you know, has such an important role in the zoning, and will it change the neighborhood or not? And so it's a little different than regular application. I still could not find anything where the mayor has ever vetoed a zoning, because it's based on the zoning ordinance, and so that's been adopted by the city. So that is a very good question that I'll have to research further, and I'll get back to Leah on that, and she can share that information. But it depends on the state. So different states may be different. The state of Georgia, I've never seen a mayor veto you know, a zoning case. Usually the city will deny it, and actually the applicant may sue in Superior Court saying that the city did not properly, is sort of biased against them because they're not applying the rules correctly. And so there have been cases where the city has denied a zoning application and have been sued, and we had to work with the applicant to come to some medium to say that you can do it, but you can't do it based on a judge decision that we can't deny it based on property rights and our own zoning ordinance. So it's a very different animal.
I was just typing in the chat that I encourage all of you to register for our zoning fundamentals track. As of, did we do all the 3 zoning classes, Tony, for this year? Yeah, we did. I remember now. So we've done the 3 for this year. As of 2022, it will be a track at the Office of Zoning's request. You have to, the only way to get into zoning fundamentals 2 is to have taken the prerequisite, which is zoning fundamentals 1. And then the same to get into 3, you have to have taken 1 and 2. But that's a really, really good track. Tony just dropped, I see the link to the survey for this class in the chat. We'll probably drop that a couple more times before the class ends, but please, please, please take it. I think it only takes like 2 minutes. Please take 2 minutes to complete that survey. We use these surveys, and if you've been with us since day 1, you know that this program has continued to improve. We use those surveys to improve these classes. We take all of your feedback and we put it to work. We do everything that we can to make this program even better. So let's keep it going.
Well, Leah, I did find a case from 1970, and it says that the appeal from the judgment declaring that the mayor of the city of Atlanta has no authority to veto a zoning ordinance. So that was from 1970 case law. So yeah.
Thank you, Corinne. You're my favorite researcher, I tell you. I kid you not. All right, so real quickly before we move on to Mr. Martin, I just saw that today is Miss Gloria's birthday. Happy birthday, Miss Gloria.
Happy
Gloria
birthday.
Hawkins Wynn is, for those that don't know, she is the secretary of NPUY, and she is also the recording secretary for the Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, and a whole bunch of other amazing things. Miss Gloria is awesome. So happy birthday to
Happy
you. She's
birthday
also
to you.
an alumnus of NPU University. She's been to several of our classes. I think there was one other thing. Oh, someone asked for the slides. We'll send the slides out. We don't have a problem with that. And the class is also going to be hosted on our Facebook page, so you can always watch it there as well. Mr. Martin, you're up next.
Yeah, I think that the answer to Gloria's question kind of blurred the line between a zoning ordinance and administrative decision, because both can be appealed in court, but they follow different processes. So, I mean, an administrative decision can say your existing zoning doesn't allow you to do this, and I can challenge that, but that's one process. Another process is I'm trying to rezone, or I'm trying to get a special use permit. And that's where my question lies. And so we have public input at the NPU level. We have a staff recommendation, and then we have public input at the zoning review board level. But what comes out of the zoning review board is purely advisory, in much the same way as what comes out of the NPU. And the decision ends up getting made at city council. And before city councilors, there is in fact no opportunity for public comment, because this has been left to the zoning review board. And I think it was you that said that this was to remove the politics from zoning decisions, but it also removes the public from zoning decisions. And so what I'm wondering is really, and this is kind of more philosophical, what is the role of the zoning review board in this whole process, other than to insulate city council from having to listen to public input?
Well,
That is definitely a theoretical question, Mr. Martin. My goodness.
it is actually law, is that there is a section of the city code. Again, we're bound by the city code. And it basically says that you only have to have the public hearing on this item once. And so the code says that you're not required to have a public hearing on an item if you already held a public hearing once on it. So the council has decided to allow that one public hearing to be held at the ZRB. And so they can listen to it, and they have the NPU public hearing. And there is a section of the law where, again, state law is a very important part of zoning that, and I was looking for that section, that gives allows the zoning review board that is appointed by members of the council to give them a recommendation about what to do, and the NPU. And so they weigh both of those and staff, and they make a decision based on that. So that does, I think, I can't speak for them, but I think that the writers of the zoning procedures statewide was trying to take the politics out of it, to prevent individual, of course, they do still speak to the NPU and members, but as much as possible to have the council members removed from the process and look at the recommendations and listen and make their votes based on that. Of course, they do consult with constituents from the NPU very heavily on their feelings about it. So again, zoning is very different because it's based a lot on the statewide law. And again, they do that to try to make it somewhat uniform. And so you don't have one area of Georgia zoned and doing processes this way, because and the developer is dealing with the state. They're usually registered, architects are registered statewide. So you're working in the state. And so there has to be some uniformity into how the zoning process works.
Sure. I guess my point is that if you compare and contrast the Board of Zoning Adjustment with the Zoning Review Board, the Board of Zoning Adjustment's decisions are final,
Mhm.
and in many ways carry as much weight in terms of what a developer can or can't do as the decisions of the zoning review board, which are merely advisory.
Mhm.
And right now, as far as I know, the zoning review board is undermanned by more than half. And I wonder if part of the reason for that is not because they feel as if they aren't really a part of the process, they're just putting in time.
Well, we
Well,
don't want to speculate now, do
yeah,
we?
I can't speculate and feel for them, but yeah, I don't know. That's
That was, as always, I appreciate the question, Jim. You always bring up really good discussion points. I don't see any other hands raised. We are, okay, I just saw a hand raised, but we're ahead of schedule. So if anybody else has questions, don't be shy. Sheridan Thomason.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Sheridan.
Hi. I was just wondering, so I just joined up my MPU's subcommittee, the zoning committee, and I'm wondering, thank you. And I'm wondering, you said that you won't have another zoning MPU university class until next year, but I don't know anything about zoning. So this is like me getting my, jumping in, and I don't mind jumping in, but I'm wondering if you have thoughts, places to go, or insight on how to.
Yes, we do. So email, I'm going to put Daniel's contact information in the chat. I want you to email him and he'll put you in touch with me and we'll all talk about that. But we also have our zoning fundamentals 1 and 2, at least I know, are on our website. The lab, we have a zoning fundamentals lab, which is the brainchild of Mr. Martin. But I don't know if that one was recorded and streamed because I was on leave when that class happened. But at least 1 and 2, which really are the more important classes for zoning, those we can get to you in a recording. And yeah, reach out to Daniel for sure, because we will be more than happy to support. It actually benefits us. So it benefits your community, of course. It benefits the city, of course, but it also benefits my team to have really strong zoning contacts in the MPUs, zoning chairs, people that really get it and that, or at least are willing to learn it. That helps us a lot. So we will do anything we can to make sure that you're equipped to do that role. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands, and therefore we are going to give final closing remarks and shut it down because I don't see any other questions. Tony, if you'll drop that link to the survey one more time. And I'm going to do, once again, y'all, this is Samantha's gig. So I'm not really, I'm a little clumsy at it. And I know that earlier I shared before I was supposed to or something like that. So this is the end of our WB 1006 legislative process. Huge thanks to our presenter for today, Corinne Lindo, our instructor rather, Corinne Lindo. Thank you so much for Corinne for the presentation. It was extremely informative. I was getting messages the whole time from people who really appreciated the content and the material. Thank you for the presentation and thank you for answering all the questions. I can't remember if there was one that you were going to get back to me on, but if so, I will make sure that I get that out. Oh, you researched it during the class. That's right. Okay, good. If you have any afterthoughts, let me know and I'll be sure to get that out to the class. So next week on the 29th, we have our WB 1008 workforce development class. And that's on June 29th. If you haven't registered for that already, you should. This is the first time that we're actually producing this class. It was scheduled for last year around pandemic time. And at that time, we had to cancel some classes because we weren't sure what we were going to do. We were finally able to get that scheduled again. This class is, the instructors for this class are leadership from WorkSource Atlanta. They, as you may know, manage job skills programs for Atlanta. But I will tell you, I had a meeting with them a year and a half ago or so. And after working with that organization for like 10 years, I had no idea that they do all that they do and that they have the programs that they have. So this is really for everyone. I think everyone will be really pleased to know, to learn about all that the city offers through WorkSource Atlanta. And yeah, I think that there'll be something in it kind of for everybody. So definitely register for that class. You can, Tony, this slide still says to register, visit npuatlanta.org. Is that accurate still, or is there a different registration?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. So yeah, register for more information, npuatlanta.org. And last but not least, please follow us if you are not already on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at NPU Atlanta. You can find us on all of those social media platforms at NPU Atlanta. That is where we post updates about our classes, especially CLI. That's the Community Leadership Institute in partnership with the University of Georgia. And you can find us on Nextdoor as well. We are always glad to interact with you all. I see from Corinne an encouragement to please bookmark the City Council's website. I don't know if you dropped that link in the chat, Corinne, but if you didn't, you might want to type in the link so people can just click it and bookmark it.
Yes, and also to register to get Leah, if they want to, I'll do that. But if they want to register to get the newsletters and press releases, they can sign up for the alerts on our website.
Yes, those are very informative, and you tend to know stuff before anybody else does if you get those updates. Not Morris Diggs, he knows everything first, but the rest of it, I'm just kidding, y'all. All right, so look, I don't know what to do with myself because we're so early. I've got 33 minutes back of my life, and I'm gonna give you 33 minutes back of your life. So enjoy your evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. Please give us all the feedback, whatever you, hi, Adrian, just seeing you for the first time. Hey, whatever it is that you think of the class, or if you have ideas, suggestions, anything, please be sure to give us that. Ms. Judy, it's very good to see your face. You were so quiet today. I don't know what to make of that, but it's good to see your face. All right, everybody.
You can share my information too if anybody has any additional questions. I'll be happy to clarify anything that we covered today.
Awesome, will do. Thank you, Corinne. So we'll send out the slides, and we'll also send out Corinne's contact information, and anything else you all need, just let us know. Daniel, hey, Janae. Daniel and Tony and I are always eager to serve the public. We love getting phone calls, questions, emails, and all that. We love solving problems whenever we can. Give us the easy problems though, y'all. Please, just the easy problems. We don't need the complicated stuff. We get enough of those later on in the year. Just give us the easy stuff. But yes, we're done. I'm rambling because we're done. You can go. You can log off. I promise. You won't miss anything. We're done. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Bye. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Corinne.
Thank you. So much fun. Bye.
Wow, nice. Tony, I see you.